Hello friends and welcome to StudyIQ. I am Joycey Joy and today in this lecture we will discuss about the rural wages and the status of rural wages in the past 5 years. Coming to the current affair, a study on rural wages over the past 5 years was recently published based on the data which was available from the Labour Bureau. So Labour Bureau had provided certain data on the rural wages for the past 5 years and a study was conducted based on this data, and this study has come out with certain highlights regarding the rural wages in the past 5 years. So we will discuss this in detail in this lecture. But before we begin, this is our channel StudyIQ and we are providing pen drive courses for various competitive examinations including SSC bank courses, UPSC optionals, SSC JE courses, teaching examination, railway examination, defense examinations, RBI grade B, NABARD grade A, UGC NET, UPSC Civil Services Examination, CLAT exams for various state PSCs and also for various professional courses. You can visit our website www.studyiq.com for more details, or you can call to any of these numbers for more information. Now first let us understand what are the highlights of the study. According to the study, in the year 2018, the rural wages have grown 3.8%. But when we take into account the annual rural CPI, that is Consumer Price Index, the inflation rate is 1.5%. So it means that when we calculate the wage rise in real terms, that is when we take into consideration the rates of inflation as well, the growth rate is only 2.3%. That is 3.8% minus inflation rate of 1.5% will give you 2.3%. So the real growth rate in rural wages is only 2.3% in 2018. Now if we look into the last 5 years rural wage growth, the average on year-on basis wage growth during the last 5 years from 2014 to 2018 stands at 4.7%. But this 4.7% is in nominal terms. That means without taking into consideration the inflation rate. So the nominal rate of wage growth or the rural wage growth in the last 5 years is 4.7%, and in real terms it is only 0.5%. This is because 4.2% is the average of rural CPI or the Consumer Price Index for the last 5 years. So when we deduct the rates of inflation from the nominal terms of rural wage growth, we will get the real term wage growth, which was only 0.5%. Now in comparison for the same month of the preceding 5 years, that is from 2009 to 13. Now we have talked about 2014 to 2018. If we consider the preceding 5 years from 2009 to 2013, the nominal rural wages grew at an average of 17.8%. And the average rate of inflation, that is CPI inflation for agricultural workers or the rural CPI inflation, was 11.1% during the 5 years. So if we deduct inflation from this nominal wage growth, we will get a 6.7%. So we can say that the real term rural wage growth during 2009 to 13 was 6.7%, and during the next 5 years, that is from 2014 to 18, it was only 0.5%. Now coming to the new trend, the lower wage growth in the last 5 years, that is 0.5% of real time rural wage growth in the last 5 years, is not just confined to agriculture related work alone. So we have seen earlier that the nominal rate of rural wage growth was 4.68%. But this is general wage rate growth. But in 8 core or main 8 agricultural occupation, the growth rate was 5.14%. So we can say that the core agricultural related activities have a higher rate of growth than the general rural growth rate. And second fact is that the wage growth for skilled workers has lagged behind the overall rural wage growth in the last 5 years. So it means that the wage growth for skilled workers in rural India has grown at a lesser rate than the general wage growth rate. And also the average growth in wages in construction sector or non-agricultural labor etc. also has been very low. So from this data we can conclude that the crisis in rural India is not just because of the farm incomes. It is also because of off-farm income as it is for on-farm income. So the main sources of poverty reduction in rural areas can be increasing the agricultural productivity plus remunerative farm prices, and in addition non-farm employment at better wages are also a very important factor in order to reduce the distress in the rural areas. So now government will have to focus not only in increasing agricultural productivity or to ensure remunerative prices for the farm produce, but along with that the focus must also be on creating non-farm employment, and these non-farm employment should also provide better wages. Now let us understand what is the way ahead. Now we have seen what is the wage trend in rural areas, and this wage trend also coincides with increasing divergence in the wholesale inflation in both food category or food inflation and non-food inflation. So we will see what is this divergence. So divergence here essentially means that there is a disconnect or there is a huge difference between the rates of food inflation and non-food inflation. For example, in the month of December 2018, the wholesale inflation for food items were minus 0.07%. That means it was a negative inflation. But for non-food items, it was 4.45%. So this shows there is a greater divergence between the rates of inflation for both food commodities and non-food commodities. So from this we can understand that when there is a negative rate of inflation in case of food commodities, it has impacted the prices of agricultural produce. So inflation means a rise in the prices of commodities. So from this inflation data, what we understand is that for food inflation there was a negative rate of inflation. That means there was a reduction in the prices of food commodities. So when there is a reduction in the prices of food commodities in the market, it means that the farmers or the producers of these food commodities does not get remunerative prices for their produce. So in terms of trade, we can say that the markets have turned decisively against the agriculture. Farmers are not able to discover remunerative prices for their produce. Now here a government intervention or a state intervention in the form of policies are very important. This should ensure the farmers get remunerative prices for their produce, and better price discovery for the farmers can ensure that the wages for farm employment will be more and there will be a increased growth rate or a high growth rate in farm wages. And in case of non-farm employment in rural areas, this can be boosted by spending on health and education. Now, in case of health and education or public services, the focus of the government should be to ensure the quality. The government also should adopt a pro-farmer trade policy. That means in the trade, the farmers should be the beneficiaries. They should get remunerative prices or decent prices for their produce. And in this regard, the government should make sure that in case of a food inflation or when there is a rise in the prices of food commodities, the ultimate beneficiaries should be the farmers. So the benefits of the price rise should be passed on to the farmers or the producers. They should be allowed to take the advantage of increase in the prices in market. And along with that, the commodity markets needs to be integrated, and also various forms of insurance must be made available to the farmers or the rural employees in order to protect them from risk. You can find the PDF of this lecture on my Facebook page, and for any queries regarding your preparations, you can get in touch with me on my Facebook page or you can email me at joyce.studyiq@gmail.com. Thank you.